in the bitter first days of the fighting on the Anzio-Nettuno beachhead, the Germans rounded up Allied prisoners and marched them through the streets of Rome. Hitler's object was to impress the Italians with the fearful power of his armies. These captured German newsreel pictures show British and Americans taken during the winter campaign. Against the background of the historic Colosseum, Italians watch quietly. Note the absence of any demonstration. While our brave comrades were marched through the Eternal City, Field Marshal Albert Kesselring directed the Nazi divisions fighting below Rome. A huge 280mm cannon led the German artillery. The joining of our Anzio forces with those that broke the Gustav line smashed the entire right wing of the Nazi defense. With the Germans in headlong retreat, Yanks of the Fifth Army enter Rome in triumph. The famous Colosseum is again the background. But now the attitude of the Italian people has changed. General Mark Clark, leader of the 5th, enters the city with his staff commanders and comes in for his share of congratulations. These are Signal Corps and newsreel pictures. The hated swastika flies no more over Rome. On a balcony of Mussolini's former palace, a G.I. Joe, Sergeant Vita, does an excellent takeoff of the ignoble Duce. The sound of bells from the Vatican announces the appearance of His Holiness Pope Pius XII. His Holiness addresses a crowd of 200,000. He gave thanks that Rome and its historic monuments were spared and blessed a grateful people. Doughboys attend Mass in the Holy City. Rome, the first Axis capital liberated by our troops. Umberto, the Italian Crown Prince, makes his first public appearance at the Royal Quirinal Palace. The new Lieutenant General of the realm takes over King Victor Emmanuel's royal rights. A grenade thrown into fascist police headquarters causes the crowd to scatter. The Roman people hate the fascist police bitterly. Don't think G.I. Joe doesn't like his welcome. Neither does he scorn good old American refreshment, real beer, made in Naples of supplies shipped from home. In the wrecked town of Civitavecchia, far north of Rome, we catch up with that mighty gun. Navy pictures show its thunder stilled. The disorganized Nazis fleeing to new defense lines abandon this symbol of their power. This is a very special day at the San Diego plant of Consolidated as a B-24 Liberator rolls from the assembly line, plastered with the signatures of the workers who built her. She's the 5,000th bomber to leave the factory. Good luck and good hunting, 5 grand. Marshal Tito, leader of the Yugoslav partisans, poses for the newsreel cameramen for the first time. A thorn in Germany's side, he and his guerrilla bands have waged constant war on the invader. Hiding in a mountain fastness, these patriots strike swiftly and suddenly at superior Nazi forces. Many women are in the groups that time and again have won towns and villages against heavy odds. Brave men and women who will never bow to the invader or let Yugoslavia die. Everyone, king and commoner, is keenly aware of the importance of the Allied drive against the Cherbourg Peninsula. England's King George discusses progress with General Montgomery. Also touring the liberated areas in France is General Charles de Gaulle, head of the French Committee of National Liberation. Normans, happy to be freed of the Nazi terror, greet him enthusiastically. But the grim business of war continues. P-51s of the 9th Fighter Command strike from an English base. Air Force cameras show a Nazi blasted. A German pilot bails out. Canadians move up under fire. A Bren gun carrier burns as troops battle Nazi snipers. Canadians round up the enemy. Not all of these prisoners suffered from Allied assault. Some were badly beaten by French civilians. As the Allies hammer their way deeper into France, German prisoners are shipped to England. The tide of battle, rolling back the Nazi hordes, also washes a good catch into the Allied net. This is the terror weapon which desperate Nazis unleashed on Britain. The rocket-propelled robot bomb which strikes indiscriminately among civilians. The British have an answer, and searchlights stab the night seeking the sky prowler. Anti-aircraft guns open up. The robot is hit. Here's what's left of the 1,000-pound missile which was launched from the French coast. Another score to remember. Veteran French commandos and Senegalese troops, supported by American, British, and French warships, invade the island of Elba, famed as the place of Napoleon's exile. Swarming from the landing craft, the men are sometimes up to their armpits due to the uneven terrain of the shore bottom, as these Signal Corps pictures show. Supplies and men pour ashore in wave after wave to wrest this important little island from the Nazis. Against strong resistance, they push ahead quickly. The death toll was heavy on the beaches, but the invaders killed 500 of the defending Germans and took 2,000 prisoners. Coupled with the Allied advance in Italy, the landing on Elba is another step in chasing the Germans right back to Berlin. Within near near bomber range of Tokyo's front yard, an American task force moves on Saipan, strategic Jap island base in the Marianas. After 4 days of air and naval bombardment, United States Marines take over. Almost 10,000 casualties, 3 times our losses at Tarawa. Part of the extensive equipment installed by the Japs on Saipan, this ruined mill produced tons of sugar annually. This blow, so close to Japan and the Philippines, handed the enemy a real jolt. Jap soldiers and civilians are cared for by our troops. Neighboring islands of Tinian and Guam were also given a terrific going over. Our own wounded are attended, and from a moving vessel, other casualties are transferred to a hospital ship. Our carrier-based flyers destroyed over 700 Jap planes in this task force operation. From the shambles of Saipan's bloody beachhead to the summit of Tapachaw's 1,500-foot peak took 11 terrible days. These newsreel Navy and Marine Corps pictures bring home to us the awful price of war. Governor Dewey holds his first press conference since his nomination for the presidency, stressing his full approval of the Republican platform and denying that he will resign as New York's governor to campaign. The charming Mrs. Dewey, too, has a word for the press. Firmly, she says she will make no speeches, leaving all campaigning to her husband. And if her Mr. Dewey enters the White House, she hopes to keep family life normal as possible.
Answering General Mark Clark's call for more wax in Italy, a fresh detachment arrives at Anzio. They settle into their new life quickly, but sometimes they struggle with problems that are just too much for them, as these Signal Corps pictures show. A soldier and a gentleman, say we. Like all GIs, their favorite moments are reading your letters from home. Gallant ladies on the war front. Gallant, too, are these Canadian girls. They flinch at nothing, as these Canadian Army Film Unit pictures prove. Just like our wax, more and more are headed for the battle zones. Cutting the number of casualties in this war are the modern Allied field hospitals, as complete as any you know. Again, brave women work alongside of our men close to the firing lines. The surgeon sees an X-ray of the shrapnel wounds. You can see that every modern facility known to medicine is available to our boys. Yes, women are working at the job of winning the war far from home. General Doolittle in England reviews wax that have distinguished themselves. Women are doing their part.
The Allied beachhead in Normandy is forged into a major victory. A Nazi tank gets it. Airborne troops continue to pour in. Allied air supremacy permits this type of reinforcement for the complete conquest of the Cherbourg Peninsula. Completely surprised by the furious assault, many Nazi tanks are caught. Isigny is left a shambles. Here are a few of the 28,000 prisoners taken by the Allies during the campaign. The fight is completely gone from these Herren folk, who at that are considerably luckier than these Germans. Over 5,000 Allied soldiers' lives was the price we paid. Ruined Nazi equipment testifies to the savage Allied attack. Another Nazi Superman idea that flopped. The Doodlebug tank, remote control that was supposed to carry explosive death. Right now it's a nice toy for the Yanks, and so are a few other pieces of equipment that are being turned against their inventors. Onward toward Cherbourg. And can you imagine real eggs, genuine hen fruit? When American troops move in, famine moves out. This sweet old lady makes a real hit with Mr. G.I. Joe.
Yanks advance on Cherbourg. From 30 to 50,000 Nazis were trapped by General Omar Bradley's 1st United States Army closing in on Cherbourg. Bitter street fighting marks the last stage of the push, and G.I. Joe is wary of Nazi snipers. But the Yanks can do a bit of sniping themselves. Meanwhile, it's no place for French civilians. Cherbourg streets are a shambles as our troops drive doggedly toward the harbor. Napoleon was primarily responsible for the heavy fortifications guarding this rich prize. Yank artillery cracks down on a Nazi bastion in the harbor as point-blank firing razes the last German stronghold. Bangalore torpedoes blast barbed wire. And this is the beginning of the end. Cherbourg's grim defenders surrender. As the Allied liberation of France rolls forward, thousands of Hitler's hordes fall into our hands. During the first 30 days of the Norman campaign, the Germans suffered 75,000 casualties. Our own men show the scars of battle too. And the enemy received humane care as a German Red Cross nurse treats Nazi wounded. With the defenses reduced to rubble, General von Schlieben, military commander of Cherbourg's fortresses, surrenders. With him is Admiral Hennicke, who received Hitler's Iron Cross for destroying Cherbourg's port facilities. Major General Joseph Collins dictates terms of surrender to von Schlieben. After leaving Allied headquarters, the High Command joins the lowly stormtrooper in an advance to the rear. And now it's double time to oblivion for those who once shouted defiance from the vaunted Atlantic Wall. Wives of Russians who joined up with the Nazis weep for fear their captured husbands will be shot as promised by their Nazi leaders. The only sign of Adolf on the Western Front, where his humbled legions are cared for. The great Gare Maritime, from which thousands of transatlantic passengers took trains to Paris or boats for home, was wrecked by the Germans. Mines, which were too late. Also near the harbor, Yanks discover a takeoff for robot bombs. Wrecked railway bridges are quickly repaired. With the streets cleared, the victors formally enter the city. General Collins arrives at the City Hall. These are newsreel and signal corps pictures. Mayor Paul Reynaud welcomes the Yanks. At the end of his speech, General Collins presents the flag of France to the city. The general returns Cherbourg to the French, but it seems G.I. Joe is going to take it back any minute.
Shuttle bombings have given our fortresses an added punch. Leaving from bases in England or Italy, they strike at their objectives and then continue to new bases that have been established in the Russian Ukraine. Here they refuel and load fresh bombs for another raid on the way home. This time we blast at both Hungary and Romania from Italy before continuing on to one of our new Russian bases. There's always a reception committee on hand with a warm welcome. Ambassador Harriman and General Aker greet the flyers who see some real Russian entertainment. Their brief stays between trips have endeared our flyers to the Russians, allies with one common purpose: victory.
The symbol of liberty in Richmond, California, the 519th Liberty ship built on the West Coast, is about to be launched. As Henry J. Kaiser presents Miss Lita Warner, the sponsor, with a bouquet. And Jack Warner, movie magnate, signs the ship, named for his father, Benjamin Warner. Harry Warner, another of the famous Warner brothers, also signs. Miss Warner is a granddaughter of the pioneer for whom the ship is named, and a daughter of the late Sam Warner, who did much to make the name great in motion pictures. Good luck to the Benjamin Warner, sturdy ship and proud name. This is Republican nominee Dewey's adult family circle. His mother-in-law, his wife next to him, his mother, and O.T. Hutt, his father-in-law. The governor met his wife when both were music students, a family which may loom large in American history. At the White House, the president announces in a letter to the chairman of the Democratic National Committee that he will accept the nomination for a fourth term. His letter concludes, "Reluctantly, but as a good soldier, I repeat that I will accept and serve in this office if I am so ordered by the Commander-in-Chief of us all, the sovereign people of the United States." Vice President Wallace, back from China, reports to the White House. He's the big question mark in the coming convention, with a fight on his hands to snare the nation again. Following in the wake of German troops retreating down the Norman Peninsula, this ingenious mine beater saves many doughboys' lives. Chains explode hidden mines and create a path of safety for our advance. Yanks of the heroic 4th, 9th, and 79th clean out Nazi snipers hidden in the ruins of a Norman town. The furious Allied attack plays havoc with Nazi equipment and rounds up thousands of prisoners, including high-ranking officers. British, Canadian, and American troops have captured more than 50,000 Germans since the beginning of the campaign. Overhead, our air forces pound ceaselessly at enemy communications and equipment, as these newsreel Air Force and Signal Corps pictures show. Nazi supply ships on canals and rivers are set afire or sunk. Hitler's rail equipment is shot up. Hundreds of enemy planes are destroyed on the ground. One of the reasons the Luftwaffe is conspicuous by its absence. Secretary of War Stimson, 76 years old, on tour of the Italian war front, travels through war-torn towns to Rome, on the first train to leave Naples for the capital since we moved in a month ago. In that short time, Army engineers made repairs. The flag-bedecked special train arrived safely, and it's congratulations for General Mark Clark. The same American flag that flew over our Washington capital the day of Pearl Harbor now waves proudly in Rome. Berlin next. The Secretary of War takes genuine interest in our wounded boys. Conferences can wait. A great American doing a great job. Out of the grime and blood of Saipan emerges America's greatest single victory in the Pacific, control of the Marianas. The drive opens on Garapan, the capital. Jap headquarters blaze after savage attacks, and Marines add another trophy. Japs bomb our command post. These are Navy, Marine, and Signal Corps pictures. Saipan cost 15,000 American casualties, but the Jap garrison of 20,000 was virtually wiped out. Colonel Carlson, hero of Guadalcanal, just before he was wounded while rescuing an enlisted man. A bad omen for Tokyo. Airfields are already being put into operation for that 1,500-mile jaunt to Hirohito's capital. The distance is a cinch for our B-29 super fortresses. The men who fought the 25-day campaign have taken another giant step to Tokyo.
Prime Minister Churchill, who with Britons is facing the robot blitz, visits an anti-aircraft installation designed to combat the menace. And there it is, the soulless killer. Mary Churchill is at her post of duty. The Prime Minister has warned Britons that even larger robots may be on the way. Already 2,700 have been announced killed. And this is the result. The bomb loaded with a ton of explosive has terrific concussive force. At the peace table, Winston Churchill will remember. Yanks, led by General Eisenhower, were well prepared to celebrate Independence Day on the firing line in France. And there was a special message for the head Nazi. As noon approached on the glorious 4th, General Omar Bradley let loose the first greeting to the Germans. In all the liberated towns and villages, Yanks and French join in the celebration. Here's a French Betsy Ross. Meanwhile, the bloody fight for La Haye Depuis continued. German snipers hidden in the hedgerows and concealed in the famous Norman apple orchards made it tough for the Yanks. Signal Corps pictures show prisoners captured by the victorious Americans. The stubborn battle for the town results in heavy casualties on both sides.
Canadians are in the thick of it. A gun carrier has set a fire. The man driving the Canadian film unit cameraman paid with his life for these pictures. Many prisoners fall to the Canadians also, adding to the grand total of 55,000 taken since D-Day.
In the French town of Grand-Camp-les-Bains, everyone gathers for a joyful liberation celebration, as shown by these Air Force pictures. The children have made American flags from paper, coloring them with watercolors. They've learned a song to honor our boys.
Flag
In Rome, liberated from the fascist and the Nazi, wreaths are placed on the Victor Emmanuel Memorial. In the free Roman breezes flies the flag so dear to every American, the flag of liberty.
Part of the greatest airborne army the world has ever known. A 285-mile-long sky train crosses the English Channel and seizes strategic points in Holland. Among them, Arnhem, where one heroic group was trapped, the Nijmegen Bridge over one arm of the Rhine, and this objective at Eindhoven. Coming in for a landing, one glider sideswipes another. British and Americans roll through Eindhoven, where the Dutch give them a rousing welcome. Meanwhile, Patton's Third recaptures part of the Maginot Line. The Germans had replaced French 75s with heavier Krupp guns pointed west. The Yanks promptly point them toward Germany. Those shells are landing in Germany, and so are these GIs. Eupen, taken from Belgium in 1940 and considered by Hitler as German territory, falls to the Allies. Yes, by the signs, Adolf thought he had this one hooked, but it got away. General Eisenhower told the occupied zones, "We come as conquerors, but not as oppressors." The head man of another German town across the original border surrenders the telephone exchange and post office. This places the war on Hitler's doorstep. Near the German border at Vittel, 2,100 American and British will soon be free. They owe their freedom to the lightning Allied thrust. Many British had been here for years, and Americans for 2. These little sisters of the poor cared for the aged and sick during the entire period. Aaron Rappaport of New York and his daughters, as well as Mr. William Irwin of Philadelphia, are among the many happy to see the Yanks. And the youngsters, for the first time in their young lives, will know the meaning of freedom and the flag that symbolizes it.
The 7th Army speeds the freeing of all southern France as General Patch's men reach Lyon, 3rd city of France. All Germans are fleeing north, except a few snipers left behind. And French and Americans quickly clean them out from a hospital where they hid. With quiet restored, the celebration starts in earnest with special cheers for the French commander Tassigny. But there's little pause for the Allied troops who push up the Rhone Valley amid wrecked German equipment in pursuit of the once powerful German 19th Army. It's not equipment alone that they leave behind. Their dead number in the thousands. The town of Bourg is passed on the chase north, and thanks for the Yanks echoes the reception in other liberated centers. Warm kisses aren't rationed in Bourg, and it's a good thing. She seems bent on kissing the whole 7th Army. Through reception such as this, the troops push to Belfort Gap, southern anchor of the West Wall. In the north and in the south, we're poised to strike. In one of the largest mass surrenders of the war, near Beaugency, 20,000 armed Nazis are herded to the rear to be disarmed. These remarkable Signal Corps pictures were actually taken behind what were then the German lines. Major General Elster tenders his revolver to Major General Robert Macon in token of surrender. The German general bitterly blamed the High Command for the plight which sent almost 2 divisions into captivity. Fritz here seems to feel the humiliation more than his 2-footed pals who are glad to be free of Yankee steel. Hey, don't we get in on this surrender too? It's the end of the line for these supermen who form only a small fraction of the prisoners taken since D-Day. Prisoners who will have time to think over the Hitler fables.
General Eisenhower visits the Third Army, which is doggedly battling its way toward heavily fortified Metz, another key to the Siegfried Line. Our big guns open up. In the Metz area, everything in the arsenal is used. Signal Corps pictures show the devastation wrought by General Patton's armor divisions as they batter their way forward yard by yard. And some of the battering is a real pleasure. The battle for Metz is rugged, but its fall is inevitable. The day of Greek liberation is at hand as a flotilla of British war vessels and transports nears Piraeus, the port of Athens. A landing in force is made for a campaign that was to be of short duration. As British troops enter Athens, they're greeted by citizens wild with joy after 4 years under the Nazi heel. Constitution Square is the center of celebration for a people who have known starvation and misery. Greek partisans who fought relentlessly join the welcoming throng. Premier Papandreou lays a wreath at the tomb of the unknown soldier. The glory that was Greece, Athens, the city eternal, with the famed Acropolis miraculously undamaged by the Nazis. Greece, to whom civilization owes so much, is again free. While Marines captured another island in the Palaus, mopping up is completed on Peleliu. Armor and flamethrowers methodically blast the Japs from their hiding places. Watch this Jap carefully. He won't go far. These Marine Corps pictures show the ruthlessness of war in the Pacific. A cave is blown up. A flock of sons of heaven who found their war in the Pacific a little too rugged after the Yanks got going. Our ambassador returns to Paris and France. Jefferson Caffrey sees the stars and stripes unfurled once more at our embassy on the Place de la Concorde. The return of our ambassador to France is symbolic of the end of Nazi tyranny in Europe. A brave nation has risen again. Mohandas Gandhi meets with Muhammad Ali Jinnah in an attempt to bring the Hindus and the Muslims together. In an India always torn by the strife of castes, Mahatma Gandhi has tried for some semblance of unity. Again, it is something he failed to achieve. He parted friends with Jinnah, he says, but the Indian problem remains. Official Army Air Force pictures reveal General Twining and General Acre being received by Romanian Army and Air Force officers as they arrive at Bucharest. The Ploiești oil fields are their immediate destination. These were the famed oil fields which received repeated air poundings from the U.S. Army Air Corps in a plan calculated to deprive the Nazis of one of their main sources of petroleum. That the plan succeeded is evidenced on every hand. 2 years and 6 months after he was forced to flee from the Philippines, General MacArthur makes good his promise to return. Vice Admirals Wilkinson and Kincaid and Lieutenant General Kruger head up the greatest amphibious force ever assembled in the Pacific. Leyte Island, midway between Luzon and Mindanao, is the target. The Japs expected this attack at Mindanao, but MacArthur smashed at the middle and split the enemy's forces. MacArthur and Sutherland watched the landings from the flagship. The Jap Air Force is conspicuous by its absence, as is the Jap Navy. The enemy lost 2,600 planes to our carrier forces in 2 months, and the Jap Navy arrived a little late, just in time to suffer its greatest defeat. The Commander-in-Chief goes ashore with Sergio Osmeña, President of the Philippines. This is a great day for all the Filipinos, not only those being liberated on Leyte, but also the gallant Philippine guerrillas who have never given up fighting the invader. It's a day of hope for all the islanders who were forced into Japan's greater East Asia prosperity sphere only to find themselves enslaved. The rich Leyte Valley is the objective of these armored forces. Others head for the airfields at Dulag and Tacloban, the island's capital. Since the original landings, other forces have gone ashore on Samar Island between Leyte and Luzon. Except for isolated enemy groups, both islands are now well under our control. As the battle rages beyond Dulag, Filipinos start the job of rebuilding their shattered town. These pictures were taken by Universal's Irving Smith and Earl Crotchet, and by other newsreel and Navy cameramen. In front of the provincial capital at Tacloban, ceremonies precede the installation of the new cabinet by President Osmeña, and the friendly Stars and Stripes witness the momentous event.